last week we were looking at computer networking and the internet, and I think we had a whale of a time looking at our protocols, talking about things like clients and servers and whatnot, and we talked about things like DNS. We talked about how to curl something, how to look up the translations of IP addresses, or sorry, I beg your pardon, look up the translations of website addresses like www.google.com to IP addresses. And then towards the end, we were showing, and you were playing with a sample application I developed up in IBM Cloud, and we were talking to that application with curl and injecting data and whatnot. So today we're going to continue looking at that app and to learn a bit more to finish off on this kind of networking and internet topic before we move on to the next topic. So we'll do that now. But what we're going to do, I had a bit of a brainwave during the week. And what we'll do now, before we press on with that, you might remember that last week we finished up, and if you weren't there last week, you'll have seen it on the video recording on the YouTube channel, that Ian was trying to use curl, the utility, to send HTTP requests to the application up in the cloud. Ian was trying to use curl to, well, he wasn't trying, he was succeeding. So Ian was able to list all the users of our sample app, and he was able to create a new user. But one of the things towards the end, we asked Ian to invoke to call or to use we asked him to send a HTTP request to one particular path of the application that would just return the information for one user. And you might remember it wasn't working last week. It was getting a 404 unauthorized error. So what I was thinking was what we would do this week is we would fix the error. We'll debug the error, and then we'll fix it. And then we'll rebuild the application and push the fixed version of it back up to the IBM Cloud, and then observe our fixes and make sure that the thing that was not working last week actually works properly. This isn't specifically to do with computer networking, but this is a computer science kind of themed series of sessions. And I think, this is the kind of thing we do for those of us working in software engineering or software development. And it's the kind of thing I do every day. I'm sure the same goes for Caleb as well and his team in IBM. So I just thought it might be of interest to show you, there's plenty of software out there on the cloud. Even YouTube is an application, just like our application. Obviously, our application is a lot simpler, but it's still an application nonetheless. Things break on YouTube, and fixes for them need to be pushed back up to the cloud. So I thought this would be a nice kind of segue. We'll fix the app, and then we'll learn we'll push it up to the cloud, and then we'll continue on from that point on. Does anybody have any questions before we proceed, or do we move on with the debugging? No? Okay. So right, let me prepare here. So I'm going to just move this out of the way over here. And right, let me just get this away, and I'm going to share my screen with you, and we'll get started. Share screen. This one here. Okay, so this is exactly where we left off last week. So on this now, you'll remember from last week, or the video from last week's session, that this is the sample application I have running up on the cloud, and it supports several different operations. So we can insert a user, or we can insert a new user. So Ian was doing that last week. So if you send a HTTP put request, we can insert a new user, which is here, users.push request.body, and that user will go into our list of users up here. That was one thing. Then we have this one here. If this application receives a HTTP GET request at /users, it's going to return the entire list of users. So it's going to take the users list, which is this guy here. It's going to convert it into JSON, or some people would say JSON, depending on where you're from. JSON stands for JavaScript object notation, and it's just a format of data. We'll see that shortly because we'll be using it. You can get the individual details of one user in your list if you send a HTTP GET request to /users/ the ID of the user. And this is the thing that was not working last week. So this is what we need to fix. And then at the bottom here, I don't think we tried this one last week, but anyway, it's here anyway. We also have a delete function. And what that will do is it will allow us, if we send a HTTP delete request to /users/ user ID, then it's going to delete the user from our list of users. Everything here was working last week except this get one here, so we're going to fix that in a moment. The other annoying thing last week that I left in there by accident was we had a bit of a difference. Up here we have /put /user, whereas down here we have get users plural. This is also users plural, users plural. So that's not very consistent. We don't want that. So this one up here should read users like that. So we want to fix that and make sure that it says /users. So none of those things are up on the cloud application at the moment on IBM Cloud. This says user, and this piece of code here to get one user out of our list is not working. So I will admit, I know why it's not working. I guessed last week why it wasn't working, and I kind of had a look at it earlier on today and proved why it was not working, okay? Now, so what we're going to do to try and investigate what's wrong is we're going to use something called a debugger. A debugger, and I would imagine that most people that are Dojo, and I don't know, in any of the classes that we did at the Dojo would have never seen a debugger before. But a debugger is something you can use to walk through your code as it runs and see how it's behaving or where it's breaking. So we're going to use, I'm going to run this application and attach a debugger to it, and you'll get to see how it works. And the debugger was something we never learned in college or school or anything. The reason being that, you know, when you're a student learning to code, really you should really try and endeavor to debug without using a debugger if it's possible to do so, if your code is very simple. In an enterprise like mine, code can be very complex, and it's good to use a debugger to help assist you in to find out what's going wrong when things aren't working the way you expect them to. So today we will use the debugger because I just want to show you this piece of technology, right? It would be a bit annoying. We don't have a huge amount of time to be walking through and trying testing fixes and seeing do they work or not without a debugger. So we'll just use the debugger and work out what's wrong. And I'm hoping I know what the problem is. I will take you in that direction, but I'm hoping someone on the call will be able to raise their hand up and tell me what's wrong when we see the problem. Okay. Right, so we can't debug the application up on the cloud. Can't do that. We cannot attach a debugger to this application running on the cloud. What I need to do, and I as a side note, I will say I will make this code available to all of you so that you can run it on your laptops as well for fun, right? That's the kind of thing we do. So I'll make this available to you as well, and you can follow along as well at home in your own time if you want. But for the meantime, I will just demonstrate, right? Because I have the debugger set up here in my editor, Visual Studio Code. So what I'm going to do is so I can't debug it in the cloud. I have to debug it locally on my machine. So it's still running up on the cloud. Let me bring this over here onto this display for a moment. It's still running up on the cloud. This is the application up on the cloud. Remember, this is the IP address where the application is running on the cloud last week. On this, so that IP address / the port number and / users. So that's where the app is living right now. And you can see what we're getting back there is an empty list. That's what the square brackets mean with nothing in the middle. It's an empty list of users. So there's no users in there right now. So that's, if I refresh the page, it doesn't work. Or sorry, it does. It does work. It shows nothing. Again, I'll put this link into the chat here in WebEx. So you can feel free to go to that in your web browser as well. And when we fix this, we'll see if we can get someone to test it for us, okay? Now, so there's the app. Now what I'm going to do, go back to my editor, and what I'd like to do is I'm going to start this application up running on my laptop with a debugger. Now, Visual Studio Code has a built-in debugger for Node.js applications, and I said last week that this was a Node.js application. This is all JavaScript, it's not Python, okay? A lot of web applications are built using JavaScript these days, more so than Python. And when we say it's a web application in JavaScript, it's most likely going to be a Node.js app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to my Visual Studio Code editor. This is the debug icon here. It says run and debug. And what I'm going to do, I already have a debug configuration created. It's pointing at this file, app.js. And I'm going to press this play button right here. There we go. So the application is running on my laptop. So I can see here in the debug console, it's running app.js, and you can see example app listening at that address. Now, if I pull over my terminal window here, and I do get pod, we can see the application running in the cloud here as well. Oh, really? Oh, sorry guys, hang on a second. 1 second now. Okay. Let's see this cluster. I'll explain all this as well, by the way, after, but not now. We want to focus on the app right now. I just need to set myself up to talk to the application in the cloud. There we go. I need this. I need to run that. Okay, now I should be able to talk to it. There we go. So there's the app running in the cloud, the same Python app that you're seeing on my laptop. That's it on the IBM cloud. And if I look at the logs for that, klog, so the application has a log of everything it runs, everything it does. Of course, Kubernetes, you change it to logs. There we go. Example app listening at localhost port 3000. That's what the app is saying at the moment on the cloud, and that's exactly what we're seeing here on my laptop. So the same application is now running on my laptop, okay? And the debugger is attached. And you can see up here, I'm going to drag it down if I can, or I can drag it across. I've this little bar that's appeared across the top of the window with some controls on it, and we're going to be using those controls in a second. You can see here I've got a couple of options that are enabled already. I have this one here, which is pause. I could pause the debugging. Ignore these three for the moment. I have this one here. If I don't even know what that is, restart if I want to restart it, or this one is stop. Okay, but these three buttons here in the middle that are grayed out, that's what we'll be using most likely. Okay. But they're grayed out at the moment because nothing is happening in the debugger. So now I need to make something happen. So what we're going to do is I'm going to come back to my terminal window. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what Ian did for us last week. I'm going to use curl to send a user into the database. Okay, so I'm going to send this curl command with a HTTP put request to send some data to localhost 3000/user, which is this function here. That's what's going to run when I run this. -D, I suppose D stands for data, and the data we're going to send is this block here, and that is JSON, that is JavaScript object notation. So we have a piece of data, there's an ID of 1, and there's a username of Michael. So I'm inserting Michael into the database, okay? So I'm going to run that, and we can see there, got some response back, got a put request at /user. And there's the log for that. Got a put request at /user. So we can see when I sent that request, the code actually went into here on line 11 and presumably ran this line and probably ran this line. So now there's another command, like if I want to check that that user was successfully entered into the database, I shouldn't say database, into the list. I can use this function here. I can get the complete list of users. So let's do that. Which is here. So I'm going to, not that one, I'm going to do, hang on. I'm going to take out the one. So we just want a get request to localhost 3000/users. I didn't make this clear last week, by the way. You might be wondering, why am I not doing this? -x get. Why am I not saying that we need a get request? And that's because when you use curl, if you don't specify -x here with something, it'll do a get request by default. So doing this command here like that is exactly the same as doing that without it. Just that's an important distinction, okay? So we're sending a GET request to localhost 3000/users, and we should end up in here and get back a list. We want to get back some JSON data with a list of users. There we go. There's Michael with ID number 1. Let's put another user in there just for fun. I'm going to put Caleb in there because Caleb is feeling a bit unwell after his vaccine, so Caleb needs to be put into a list of wellness. So he was in there. So there's Caleb. We've got another put request at /user, and we'll list the users again. And now Michael is there, and Caleb has safely made it into the list where he can recover from the side effects of his vaccine. Okay, it's a very special list. You're welcome, Caleb. I'm too generous, you know. Okay, so there's our users in the list. Now, this is where Ian had a bit of trouble last week, entirely my fault. I said to Ian, oh, Ian, there's another function here, which is this one, that will allow us, rather than fetching the entire list of users, like we've done here, if we just want to fetch one user. So let's say let's say Caleb's recovered and I want to fetch him out of that list. What I should be able to do is send a GET request to /users/user ID. And that can be replaced with whatever ID I want. We know that Caleb is ID number 2, so I should be able to do /users/2 to get Caleb only out of the list. So let's do that. And shock horror, it's not going to work because the whole premise of this is that it's broken. So let's have a look. So I'll change this to a 2. So we're now saying /users/2. Whoops. And we're getting an error. 404 not, well, ignore that one. 404 not found, user not found. So the user is not found. So how could it not find Caleb in the list of users? Because he is there. We have his correct ID number. So why is he not there? That's where our app is broken, and that's where I'm hoping you're all going to help me fix it. I don't hear anybody getting upset at the thought of having to fix the app. So that's good. That's a good start. Okay. So we know that this is the code that runs, or should be run. That's what we're guessing, by the way. Look there. Return response.status 404 send user not found. That's the message we're seeing. Okay. So we know we're coming on this line, but what we really want, this is the line that should be returning Caleb to us, response.json, and it would send back some of the user data, but this is not running. But we know this is the function we want, so we need to debug this function and see why is it not working, okay? Now, if I want to use the debugger to look at this code and debug what's going on, the first thing I need to do is put in something called a breakpoint. I'll put that word into the chat window there. A breakpoint. And a breakpoint is a place in our code where the debugger is going to stop and pause when it reaches it so that we can examine what's happening, okay? Now, the typical way in any code editor to insert a breakpoint, you need to put it on a particular line. So you see if I hover over the side here, there's a little red dot hovering up. That's the symbol for a breakpoint. So what I want to do is I want to start debugging from the first line of this particular function in my code. So I want to start debugging on line 21. So let's put that there. So that's bright red. Okay, so we now have a breakpoint on that line. Okay, so the debugger should stop when the code, now nothing's happening because I'm not doing anything, the app isn't doing anything, but the next time this line of code tries to run, the next time it tries to execute, the debugger is going to stop here before it executes the line, okay? So if I want this line to try and execute, I need to send this curl command again. No, not that one. This one here, users number 2. So let's do that. There we go. See that I haven't got a response yet. And you might see that we now have a yellow line across here. That's the editor showing us that the debugger has kicked in and is now stopped on this line. It has not run this line yet. It will run this line of code in a moment when I tell it to, okay? Now, what's useful for us at the moment is what is also over here on the left-hand side. We see variables. So this allows, so we can see there's a variable here called user ID. So this is going to let me see what variables I have and what values they have. And we're going to hopefully use this to determine what's wrong. So I want you to pay close attention to what's going on over here, okay? You can ignore some of these ones for the moment. They're a bit beyond the scope of this talk. Let's look at the user ID one. Right now it says it's undefined. That's because this line of code hasn't run yet. The debugger sees user ID, but it does not have a value yet. So we're saying let user ID equal request dot params dot user ID. But that line has not run yet, so user ID does not have a value. So I now want this line to run and see what happens. So you might notice on the debugger up here that the controls have changed now that the debugger is actually stopped, right? Or it's not stopped, but it's paused. It wants us to do something. So the pause button has turned into a continue button. If I was to press, I can do it. If I press continue, the code has just continued on without stopping until the end, and we get back the user not found message again. So let me do that again now because we don't want to continue, right? What's of interest here, if I put in another breakpoint, maybe here on the next line, if I press continue, it will resume execution until it reaches the next breakpoint. So if I press this now, it's going to stop here on this line at the next breakpoint. So if I press resume or continue, see that it's now stopped on this line because it's the next breakpoint. It didn't continue all the way through. So I wanted to continue all the way through for a moment, and I'm just going to take that out and I'm going to run it again. Now, the buttons that are of use to us here are these three buttons in the middle here. We're only really concerned with this one at the moment. I don't want to overcomplicate things here. It's a button that says step over. That essentially means step over the line of code and go to the next one. So if I want to now execute this line of code, I can press the step over button. So I'll do that now, and what you'll see is that it's going to go down to line 22 in yellow. Just done that. And we can now see that this line 21 has now actually run, it's executed, and we can see the user ID variable now has a value 2. That's because this line has now run, it's now executed, and it's taken the user ID that we passed in when we called it with the curl command 2. So user ID equals a string. You can see we've the quote signs around it, so that's a string. It's the string 2, okay? Now, the next line here is a for loop. We saw for loops in Python very briefly. We're not going to explain them in JavaScript because it's not important to step through right now. But what this for loop is going to do here is that it's going to go over each item, each user in the users list, right? So we're creating a variable called index, which starts at 0, which is 0 is the first position in the list. And why, for the duration of time that the value of index is less than the size of the list or the length of the list, and on each time the loop goes around, add 1 to the value of index. So the first time around it will be 0, the second time around it will be 1, the second time around it will be 2, the second time around it will be 3, and it will keep going as long as the value of index is less than whatever users.length is, okay? And we can see that right now. There's users, there's the users list, and it has a length of 2. And I can see the 2 items in the list. There's Caleb in the list with ID 2. Okay, so the debugger is showing us that all that is correct. The length is 2, so as long as the value of index is less than 2, the body of this loop will execute, okay? So, but it's going to start at 0. So let's go. I'll press step over again. So we're now on the first line inside the loop. And our index variable, where's our index variable? Block is up here. Index, there it is, 0. Now, what are we doing? Now we haven't seen if statements yet. We might look at that later if we have time, but we have looked at Boolean logic, and we know that this is a conditional. We are checking, we're going to the users list, getting the item in position 0, because 0 is what index is at the moment. We can see that up there. And what we want to do is we want to look at the ID of the user in position 0, and we want to see, is it equal to the user ID? So what are we saying here? So user ID is the string 2, which is there, And users brackets index. So let's go into the users list. There's users. Open that. Index, which is 0. So we want the item in the 0th position in the index, which is 0, which is there. And dot ID, and here it's 1. So the question is string 2 equal to the integer number 1? That is obviously false. They are not the same. So this Boolean condition is going to be false. So if I press, so what will happen is we will not run this line of code because this condition is false. So I'll step over it. And you see, it didn't run this at all, which is correct because that condition, this Boolean condition was false. And what we're going to do is we're going to add 1 to the value of index. So if I step over that, we'll go back up to the top of the loop. And index is now equal to 1. So it's added 1 to the index. And we'll go again. Now we already know, oops, I beg your pardon, I clicked too quickly there. I'm sorry about that. Let me do that again. Oops, I took out the breakpoint. There we go. Just step back through that again. Oh, sorry. Do you know what's happening? Hang on, there's another bug in here. So we're checking if Michael's ID, which is 1, is equal to user ID, which is false. And we'll step over that and go back up again. The value of index. Oh yeah, there is another bug in here, isn't there? The value of index is the value of index, or is it up here? Is 1. And it says, is index less than users.length? Users.length is 2. Actually, that should be true. Can you see that, Caleb and Thomas, or is that just my imagination? It's not.
You're iterating twice.
Say that again, Victor?
You're
So
index twice at the bottom of the loop and also as the.
Oh yeah.
Oh Jesus Christ! You're absolutely right, guys. Thank you so much. This is what happens when you don't write for loops like this in a long time.
Yeah, you just use while loops like Sunny.
Exactly. Oh dear, that was very embarrassing, I have to say. What would I do without you guys? My career would probably go nosedive into the corner.
This is just the thing you broke for your work.
No, that was
getting
something else.
fixed for you now.
That was something else. No, that was worse. Yeah. So yeah, the for loop. Yeah, the for loop is in. It should be increasing index for me. Yeah. Oops, sorry, I've done it again. I've pressed the thing too many times. There we go. Okay, so we're back again. Right. Let's go over that one more time. So, am I seeing what you're seeing, guys? It doesn't look like we've been getting in there at all, have we?
Can you evaluate expressions?
I can on my. Yeah, I can.
What does the parameter user? So what does the user's object actually look like?
Oh, that's why. Thank you, Caleb. Without even running, I restarted the app, so I lost the user in the list. 0. That's why. Yeah, I should probably. Yeah, thank you, Caleb. Yeah, that's what's wrong. Let me show you guys. Look, we can see it in the debugger actually. Look, if I run that again. The users list is now empty because I restarted the application. It says the length is 0. So index is starting out at 0. So we'll go down. Index is 0. Well, it will be in a moment. Index is 0. And 0 is not less than 0. That's false. So it's now not executing the loop at all. That's my fault. So we're going to have to populate the data with Michael and Caleb all over again. So let's put Caleb in first. And put me in again. Okay. So now if we run this.
Are you using Command R with ZSH?
Yeah.
You can just press up arrow after you type part of it.
I can only do so much, Caleb. I did. I pressed Command R.
Yeah, you don't actually need to press Command R with ZSH.
Oh, this is a ZSH. I think I've changed my default shell to bash.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's why. I don't like ZSH. Anyway, it's caused us a few problems here in the past. So, right, we have our two users back in there again. So let's try and get Caleb out this time. There we go. Oops, I'll put the, what happened there? Also, I've added Caleb a second time. We haven't accounted for that in my code, so I'm going to need to start it again. To clear out the list, and we'll put Michael in, and we'll put Caleb in. Okay, there we go. Now let's run the curl again to get user ID 2. Here we go. We'll check everything is okay this time. So we have index 0, and the users list now has 2 users back in there again, so the length is 2. Okay, right, let's go. So where we were before, we were checking this. So the ID of the first user, which is Michael, 0, and the ID is 1, and that is not equal to the string 2 here. So this is going to be false, and we're going to skip this line. There we go. So now we're back up at the top of the loop. And yeah, now it's working properly. Okay, now we know the next user is Caleb, so we would expect that the next user should give us back Caleb. Okay, so it says if users index, so the value of index, where's index up here? Index is 1. Go into the users list, which is here, and find the user at position 1, which is Caleb. Yep, that's exactly as we expect. And get his ID, and his ID is 2. And the user ID is also 2. So we would expect this to work. But it hasn't. It thought this was false, and it did not return Caleb's information. So there is the problem. So the question is, why did it not think Caleb's ID of 2 was equal to the user ID 2? This is where I'm hoping that someone out there can chime in. So I'm going to put this up again. And I'm just going to leave it there. Oops, I went too fast again. And I'm going to ask you to put your hands up if you think you can identify from my debugger why is it that this condition here is coming back as oh, someone's got their hand up. Connor, hi on Connor, wait now before let me put the thing up before. Oh, I've done it too quickly again. Index of 1. There we go. Okay, there we go. Right, Connor, go for it, man. What's wrong here?
This is a bit of guess, but would it be because of how lists work and that Caleb is in his 1 on the list? Oh, never mind. Oh, what is it?
It is true though. He is number 1 in the list. I'm number 0, and he's number 1. Yeah. It is reaching into the list, and it is pulling out information, right? Have a look here. So look at the value of user ID. So there's user ID. The debugger says 2 here, and Caleb's ID, users index 1 ID is 2 here. So what's going on here?
Is it because that's classified as ID and the other one's classified as user ID?
You're edging in on it, but not quite there. Look at the values of it.
User ID is a string.
Yes. Well done.
Eureka.
User ID is a string. We know it's a string because it has the 2 quotation marks around it. The ID inside Caleb here is an integer, is 2. So the integer 2 is not equal to the string 2. It is correct for that to be false. So they are not equal. That's why it's coming back as false. Okay. Well done, Connor. So we need. So let's see, what do we need to do here to fix this? Let's put the curl back in. So what we want to do, Caleb's ID is an integer. So what we want to leave that. That's the structure of our users. We don't want to change that. What we really want here is for the user ID up here to be an integer as well, to be a number. So that's coming from here. Let user ID equal request.params.user ID. So this is a string, and even if I hover over there, the debugger shows us it's the string 2, not the integer 2. So we want this to be an integer. So we can convert it to an integer. And in fact, we've already done it down here. The solution was down here the entire time. Parse int. So that's a function in Node.js that allows us to take a string, which is this, and it will convert it to an integer. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the application. And I'm going to put in here parse int brackets and close it. Okay, there we go. So now that should be an integer and it should work. Now, the logical thing here to do would be to test this again and see that it works before we push it up to the cloud. But, you know, we only have so much time here and I want to keep your attention, not dry you away in debug land. So we're going to do a terrible thing and we're going to assume it's fixed and we're going to push it up to the cloud anyway. And we'll see on the cloud if it's working. Caleb, you should say shame on me as an engineer for even suggesting this.
Shame on you as an engineer for even suggesting this.
Thank you. Okay. There we go. Okay, now the other thing we'll do while we're here, we'll change this guy to be users rather than user. So that we've got users everywhere rather than just user. Okay, so that's up there. Okay, so right. Our app is fixed. We have fully tested it, and don't let Kalen tell you to the contrary. Okay, it's fully tested. Okay, so now we've made our changes, we fixed our problem, we've tested it, and we want to rebuild the application to put it onto the cloud. Okay, so in IBM and in a lot of enterprises these days, we package software in something called a container. So we put our software into containers, and then what we do is we let the container run on the cloud. The container contains our software. Think of a shipping container, right? It's like a, you know, like a container shipping container. We don't want to buy one, we just want to see some shipping containers. There is the analogy, right? Think of a shipping container. So what we're going to do, there's a good one, right? Because it's open. We're going to shove everything we need to run our application inside a container, and then we're going to send the container to the cloud. And how we do that? We use.
You can actually buy that.
Huh?
You can actually buy that.
Oh, did you see that? I put in there shipping container, and it's
Yeah, it's on Amazon.
Oh, that was on Amazon. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
What was? Look at that. But there's no price given.
I'm very surprised that you can get. I guess they're models, but
they're
I'm
models.
still surprised.
This is not at all satisfying. Okay, who knew there were models of containers? I feel like I need to buy this as a demonstration for the next time I talk about containers in person. There we go. All right. So we put all the software. I'm just going to turn on the light there, guys. It's a bit dark. We put all the software we want, everything we need to run our software. We put it into a container, and then we send the container to the cloud. The containers, the technology we use for containers is something, well, typically speaking, historically, is something called Docker. There we go. So this is Docker. So we're going to build a Docker container. Accelerates how you build, share, and run modern applications. All of our software in IBM is a container. So we're going to. I'm looking for a simple about page, but of course, as soon as you these days, as soon as you as something becomes big, they sort of like just like, what is Docker? What is Docker? Overview. There we go. Docker is an open platform for developing, shipping, and running applications. Docker enables you to separate your applications from your. We don't care about that right now. By taking advantage of Docker's methodologies for shipping, testing, and deploying code quickly, this is what we're going to be doing. You can significantly reduce the delay between writing code and running it in production. So I've just written the code, and I want to get it onto my server so that people can, like yourselves, because I've given you the IP address so that you can use it with my fix that we worked on together, where Connor identified the problem. Okay. Docker provides the ability to package and run an application in a loosely isolated environment called a container. Okay, so the isolation and security allow you to run many containers simultaneously on a given host. A host is a server, so I'm going to send my container to the server. I can run as many containers on that server as I want, presumably. Okay. Containers are lightweight and contain everything needed to run the application, so you do not need to rely on what is currently installed on the host. What does that mean? That's very important. This is a Node.js app. Okay, I have Node.js running. I have Node.js running. So if I stop the debugger there, if I simply type node app, there's the application running. Okay, I have Node.js installed on my machine, and I need Node.js installed on my machine to run this code. Okay, the advantage of the container is that the container will come with Node.js in it. I don't need to go onto a server somewhere and install Node.js on it by myself. It'll be in the container, and I won't have to worry about it. All I have to worry about is my code. Okay, so that's why it's so ideal for these kind of things. So we're going to build a Docker container with this code fix that we've just done. So I'm going to stop that. Docker build. Yeah, there we go. So there it is. So I've Docker installed on my machine. Docker build is the command to run the container, and I'm going to give my application a tag. Okay, and the tag. Actually, that's not. I beg your pardon. Well, yeah. The tag here, you can see we've got mjjos1/user demo app. Once we've built this container, we're going to send it up to a centralized repository of containers. And that repository is called Docker Hub. And you can go and look at my profile on Docker Hub. So if I go to Docker Hub, it's like an archive of lots, well, not really, of containers, right? A library of containers. Okay. So if I come in here, here's my profile, mjjos1. There is the app we've been running up on the IBM Cloud at the moment. That's not the app now, that's just the container, right? mjjos1/user demo app. I put this here last week in preparation for last week's class, right, or session. And you can see there, I pushed it up 7 days ago and pulled it down 6 days ago. And it has, so its name is mjjos1, which is my username, /user demo app, and it has tag latest. Okay. Now to demonstrate here, I'm going to do something slightly different to what I did before. I'm going to name it mjjos1/user demo app, and I'm going to put, rather than a tag of latest, I'm going to say fixed. Right? Or actually, maybe I won't even do that. Maybe I'll do something like v1.0.0. So like it's version 1 of the application. Well, I suppose last week's version was really version 1. So let's say this has a minor fix in it. So maybe we'll say it's version 1.0.1. Okay? So I'm going to run that. And Docker engine, which is on my laptop, is now running through the process, or running through and building the application, and it's already done. How does it know what to do? I have something here called a Docker file, and this contains the instructions of how to build the application. And you can see there at the top, it says from node 12. That's the container that I want my container to be based on. So I said we need Node.js to run this application. So I'm starting from an existing Node.js container image, right? Oh, sorry guys, my monitor has just gone black and fuzzy on me. I now can't see. Oh, there we go, it's working now. So we're starting from an existing Node.js container, right? And what we're doing is we're putting in all the files from our. Well, I don't want to talk about this because it's beyond the scope of what we're talking about, but I copy all the files into the container, and it says to start the container, somebody should run node app. So when the container starts up, the cloud should run the command node app, just like I did down here, node app.js to start up the application. That's how it starts. Okay. So when I said Docker build here, it ran through this file. This was the instructions it was following, and so it gets the base Node.js container image, and then runs a few commands, puts all the files in there, and then we give it the startup command, and that builds the container image. Okay, we build images. Containers are built from images. So we just built an image for our container. The image is the blueprint for our container. If I run, oh geez, I've wiped out the command. There we go. If I run Docker images, this will show me all the images on my machine. Okay, I have a lot of them because, like I said, all our software is containerized. And there's our most recent one. Look, mjjos1/user demo app. tag v1.01. It has an ID. It was created a minute ago. Look at the size of it, 920 megabytes. So me running that command has pushed 912, almost a gigabyte of things needed to run my application inside the container image. Right? It's big. It's big. We should really work to make it smaller, which we can do, but that's beyond what we're looking at today. So there's our image. So what I need to do is I need to push this updated image to Docker Hub. If it's not on Docker Hub, I can't update the cloud app with the new fixed image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run Docker push. So Docker push will push the container image from my laptop up to the cloud, up into Docker Hub. So I'll say Docker push mjjos1 / user demo app v1.0.1. There we go. This push refers to a repository, docker.io / mjjos1, my repository, / user demo app. And it's pushing up layers. Container images are made of several layers. So it's pushing up the layers that form the image. And there it is. v1.0.1 is now pushed up with a particular kind of ID here. So that's pushed. Let's now go back to Docker Hub. I love this somehow. I don't know why. Let's go back to Docker Hub. I'm going to refresh the page. And there it is. There's our new version of the image, v1.0.1. Pushed a few seconds ago, pulled a few seconds ago. All right. So our image for our container is now sitting up on Docker Hub, and we are now ready to update the IBM Cloud app with this image. Okay, with this container image. So I'm going to bring over my my terminal window to do that. Now, this is not the best way to. This isn't the container, the window I want. Oh, let me actually. One second, now, guys. It's the wrong window. Oh, here we go. Yeah. So this is. Let me just make sure I'm on the right place. There we go. This is my IBM Cloud account, and there it is. That's the running container. The old version. That's the container running in the cloud. You can see their state is running. It was put there 6 days ago. Okay, so we want to update this container to run the new container image with Connor's fix. All right. So the way we update it, it doesn't. We don't modify this one. We create a new one with the new fix. Okay. Now there's nicer ways of doing this, but I want to show you. What I want to do is I want to show you kind of exactly how this is working. So what I want to do is not OC, it's a bit OpenShift. Caleb will understand. K get deploy. We use something called a deployment to deploy our container. And there it is, user app deployments. What I'm going to do is I'm going to edit that. So I'm going to do K edit deploy user app development. Oops. Oh, sorry, deployments. Jesus. Deployment. This is the definition of the deployment. We don't need to talk about this. We will not be talking about this. It's way beyond the scope of what we're doing. But if I come down here, here's the list of containers that this deployment should run. And there's the image. Look, there's the old version of the image. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to v1.0.1. You'll notice there was nothing there before. It was just like that. When there's nothing there before, it defaults to the one that says latest, which was this one. All right, but I now wanted to use this one. So we're going to explicitly say that. So we're going to say, where are we? Colon v1.0.1. And I'm going to save that change. And there it says it was edited. Now, if I do this very quickly, look what's happening, guys. A new container is now deploying. It says container creating. That's now running. That's now running of 11 seconds. And look what it's doing. It's taking down the old container with the old broken container image on my behalf. It says terminating. It's stopping it, and it will disappear in a moment. That's very important, guys. That's not something I don't think we've shown at the dojo before. Have you ever wondered, for example, why is it that if you're using something like YouTube or something like that, that if YouTube rolls out a new feature, but they don't take all of YouTube down, update it, and then put YouTube back online. YouTube doesn't go down for the new feature, right? You just log on to YouTube one day and suddenly the new feature is there. That doesn't mean they took it down, updated the app, and put it online again. You'd hear about all sorts of YouTube outages. That's not how it works. What's happened here is that the IBM Cloud, what it's done is it deployed, it ran the new version of the container, and once it knew that it was running and ready, it took down the old version. It did not remove the old version until the new version was up and running successfully. Just think about that if you don't take anything else away from this, right? It doesn't remove the old version until it knows that the new version is up and running successfully. Because if it was to take down the old version before it puts up the new one, there would be a period of time where there's no application running at all. Okay, that's a modern kind of cloud-based software development practice. All right. Now we have our new app. It's running. So let's see moments of truth. Well, OC. No, sorry, I'm so used to OpenShift. It's another version of the cloud. K logs on this container. There we go. So the app is listening again. Right. That's it from me for now. What I would like to do, I want to settle some unfinished business. Ian, are you there?
Yeah.
Hello, Ian. Would you be willing to do some of the curl commands again to see that they now work?
No problem. Opening it. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, I'll stop sharing, Ian, and you can share. Do you still have the curl commands from last week by any chance?
No.
You do?
No, I don't. Sorry.
Oh, you don't? Okay, that's no problem. I'll send them to you. So I'll put them into the the chat window. Okay. So bear with me now a second. So let me get the so the first thing is before we do that, Ian, what you might do for me, I probably should have done it before I start sharing. Will you go to the chat window, Ian, and can you go? You know, I posted the link to the application earlier in the chat window. Can you go to that just to prove to everybody that the app is still there?
Will I stop screen sharing?
Oh no, you can do it if you can do it in your browser. That would be good.
Yeah, I'm running in my browser right now.
Okay, we can only see your terminal window.
Yeah, 1 second.
Yeah, take your time. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so you've just curled the app, and you can see that as we expect, there's no users in that list. All right, that's good. So Ian, let me send you now the command or the curl command to insert a user into that list. And we need to send you the one that's escaped properly, like the thing we had all that trouble with last week. Bear with me now one moment, Ian. Just grab this here. Go to the WebEx window and chat. So I'm going to paste. Now I need to change the address. So this is it is right. So it's 169.51.203.121.32141/users, right? And we're going to put, now I just need to do the escaping thing that we did last week. So I need to do this, 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 and this. Okay. There you go, Ian. That's the command you need to run to put, say, me into the database, right? So if you run that, okay, there we go. Got a put request at user. Very good. So if you list the users again, Ian, the first curl you did. Oh, don't forget to do curl at the beginning. That's it. Yeah. There we go. So I'm in the database. Okay, perfect. So now, Ian, now what we want you to do is, can can you bring up don't run it, Ian, but bring up the first curl command, this is the last one you just did. Exactly, yeah. And what you're going to do now is test the path that was broken last week. So to do that, just put a / no space, Ian, right? No space, / 1, ID 1, right? And run that for us. Oh no, you can leave out the ID. Literally just put 1. Okay, yeah. Hey, it works. So if you run the curl command again, Ian, to put a user into the list, the second one, and make up another user and another ID, just to show everybody, right? If you run all that again. Take all of it from where the curl bit starts. Curl minus x put. Yeah. So okay. Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah. So now if you do the one where you do maybe / users 2. And now we just get your information, Ian. Excellent, Ian. Well done, and congratulations, Connor. Your fix works. I identified the problem.
But 2 users have got the same ID.
That's a good question. Why don't you try put in another user, Ian, with a different username and put in the same ID? See what happens.
So you put in.
So you're going to put in Ian C, is it, with ID number 1, okay? Okay, now why don't you list the users first, Ian, right? Do the list of them rather than the ID one, right? Just to see what we get before you run the ID. So now we've several users. Good on you, Killian, for doing this yourself. Yeah. So we have we've several users with ID 1 now. Michael, Killian, and Ian C. So go for it, Ian. What's going to happen? Let's see. Now, what do you think happened?
It found the first one.
It returned the first one. Exactly. And the reason for that, if I could share again for a moment, Ian, and I'll show you why. Just because I have the code, right? Share my screen. Where is this one? And it's app.js. The reason being is because in the function, we're looping over the list, and it loops over the list from the front of it to the back of it. And as soon as it encounters whatever's the first one it encounters where the IDs are equal, it will just give you back that one and stop. So as soon as it reached me, because I was the first one in the list, I said, oh, that's ID 1, that's correct, that is Michael. Didn't even look at the other ones. Yeah. So that's why that happened. It would be really nice, and maybe we'll do it next week, because I don't think we're I spent so much time explaining debugging this evening. We haven't got through everything I wanted to go through yet. Maybe we can do it next week, and we can start looking at databases next week. Maybe what we could do together next week is we can try and do a fix on it. What we should probably do is put something in here that would stop another user coming in that has an ID that already exists in the list. Of course, in a real application, the user wouldn't supply their own ID. Like when you signed up with your Gmail account or your YouTube account or your Facebook account or whatever it is, you didn't give Facebook or YouTube or Google an ID. They give you an ID, you know? So that's the real way it should be fixed. Maybe we can have a look at that as well. Generating a random ID, you know? We can do, if people find it fun, we can have a look at that next time. Okay, well done, Ian and Connor. Thanks for all of that. So there's our application. So you've seen now how we've used the debugger to debug an application, put a fix in, and send it up to the cloud, and get the updated application rolled out onto the cloud, and then Ian has obviously tested it for us. So that's always the kind of stuff I would have liked to have done in the dojo in later years. We just didn't get around to it. So I'm happy to be able to show it to you here. Now, so what I'd like to do now, because I said I would do it last week and we didn't do it, is I want to show you some Python code. I will make the code for the server application available, and people who want to can play around with this and change it, whatever they want. I'll put it up on GitHub. But obviously all along, what we haven't been looking at Node.js, we haven't been looking at JavaScript, we've been looking at Python. So what I want to do is I want to show you some Python, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the coding rooms now, and I'm going to ask you all to join it. There's just one small problem though. I tried this earlier. I'm going to show you 2 Python apps, right? And each of the Python apps is going to talk to the demo app in the cloud and do something with the data. The problem is that, and rightly so, I guess, but it's not unfortunate for us right now, the coding rooms will not allow us to send network HTTP requests outside the coding rooms environment. So while we can invite you to the coding rooms and we can look at the code in the coding rooms, we can't actually run the Python code there, which is a bit of a bummer. You'll have to run it locally on your machine. But that's also why I'm inviting you to the coding rooms, okay? I'll put the code up in the coding rooms for now. You can copy it down onto your machine and run it as a Python program locally. All right? So let me get the coding rooms started, and that's what we'll do for the last 20 minutes, right? Coding rooms. And I'll put the link into the chat there, okay? Does anybody want to ask me anything? Obviously, we've got through a lot of stuff tonight. Everything we've done tonight really in terms of fixing the software, doing the deployments, none of that's really important. That's not what these series of sessions are about. I just wanted to give you, since you're here with me now and this is a computer science, I just wanted to give you a sense of what kind of stuff goes on. It's not, you don't have to learn any of that stuff. It's not important, This is just a demonstration. You can take it or leave it. But if anybody wants to ask me any questions about anything, feel free to fire away while I get the coding rooms online. Okay. I have the coding rooms up and running now, so I'll just paste the link into the WebEx chat. So feel free to log in there as you will have done before. There's the link. And I'm going to bring this over here. Hang on. And I'm going to create. I've created a new folder in here, number 6, networking and internet. So I'm going to create a new file in there, and I'm going to call it user app.py. So if you look at my screen share for a second, everybody, this is the file I want you to look at in folder number 6. There's the button for the folders list, and we want to go into folder 6 and user app.py. This is what I want you to have a look at, right? I can see Ian, Killian, and Luca have made their way in here so far. But if you can't get in, don't worry. I'll look at my screen and you'll see all the code, okay? I'm going to put this over here. And I might get people to write some code for me here. I'm not just going to, but I might write some of it, but I'll get you to write other parts of it, okay? Can everybody guess here? I only see 3 of you here, Ian, Killian, and Luca. That's all. Can everybody else get here?
You pasted the link in the chat, right?
Yeah.
When I click that link, I see a room with other people on it, but not you.
Can you share your screen, Caleb? Shall we?
Yeah. You see?
Oh, yeah, that's the other file. That's old main.py. So
it's only a file. Right.
Yeah,
I thought it was like
show everybody there, Caleb, since you're sharing, right? You see the watch now. I can see we have Anonymous, Hawk, Daniel, Connor, and Victor. If you click click that little icon on Alex, click that little icon on the side, and then go into folder number 6. and user app.py.
Nice.
Yeah. Can you do those steps again, Caleb? If you go back to the first one. So
You have to open this file window thing.
Yeah.
And then click on the top one, 6, and then click on user app.py. And you should see the rest of us here.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Is someone having any issues with that? Oh, I see there's more people here now.
Oh, good. Daniel and Connor have made it, yeah.
Okay, it's just Alex left.
You okay, Alex? Can you find it?
Well, yeah.
Okay. Do you want to stop sharing so okay then and we'll press on?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll share again. Here. Okay. Who'd like to write some code? Put your hands up. I'll tell you what to write, don't worry. Okay, I can write the code, or I can write the code, yeah. Or Caleb or Thomas, if I send you the code, I can send you the code on Discord, guys. This is what we want to, on Victor, of course. This is what we want to write. Do one of you want to take the lead here? Well, like I said, we can't run this code in Well, Killian, hello, Killian. Are you happy to write some code for us?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Do you want why don't you click? So you're in user app, Killian. Do you want to click into that? So right. So so there's two things we need at the top, Killian. Right. We need to import some Python modules that will allow us to send network requests. Right. So the first one to do that, Killian, the first thing we want on line number 1 is to write import. Okay. And what you want to do is write import requests. Okay. Requests. Plural. That's it. Yeah, very good. And then on the next line, we want to import, because we know we're dealing with JSON data, we want to import a JSON library. So if you do import JSON for JSON. Very good. Okay. Now, if you go down 2 lines, Killian, the next thing we now need to do is we need to define a variable called URL, and we need to point it, Killian, at the IP address of our server or of our app in the IBM cloud. So why don't you create a variable called URL and let it equal the following that I'll paste into the chat there. There we go, Killian. If you look in the chat now, you'll see it. Very good. So that's where that's the URL to our app that allows us to get lists of users. Okay. Very good, Killian. So if you go to the next line, now one of the things we need to do is we need to tell the server when we make our HTTP request that we want to get JSON data, and to do that we need to specify some headers. And when we were doing that on the curl commands as well, that was where we said -h. So what we need to do, Killian, is we need to create a variable called headers, okay? And I'll send this to you as well, Killian, because this maybe is a slightly awkward one to write out. And you want to make it equal to this, Killian. It's in the chat window, and it should, and just that basically on its own, right? Very nice. So headers is a JavaScript, is a JSON object as well. It contains the key, accept, and a value application /JSON. Okay, very good. So if we go to the next line, Killian, right, go down 2 lines now. So now we have all the info. So if we want to fetch the list of users from the server, we have all the information we need now. All we need to do is make the request. Okay. So what you're going to do, Killian, is we're going to send a request to the server and get a response. Okay. So we want a variable here, Killian, called response equals And we're now going to use the Python requests module to make the request. So we want requests, just like you've imported it on line 1, requests dot, and we want to send a get request. We saw that the get request returns user data. So you're going to do dot get, and then open brackets, Killian, you know, like round brackets, like we're doing a function call, and we're going to pass in 2 pieces of information. We're going to pass in the URL, so go ahead and put that inside the brackets, and then we're going to put a comma, because we're going to provide a second piece of information, and we're going to pass in the headers, Killian. So if you put the headers in there as well, okay? Very good. Now, come down to the next line. So that's going to send, guys, a HTTP GET request to the URL in the variable that Killian has a line for. Now, once and we're going to get a response, and the response is going to be stored in the variable called response, okay? So now we need to do something with that, right? So what we want to do is we want to extract the user data from that response. So what we want to do, Killian, is we want to create a variable called users, because this is going to give us the list of users. Users equals response dot JSON, JSON, because it's a JSON response, and then have round brackets, Killian, just like you did before, but they're empty, okay? That's another function, the JSON function, that will allow us to take JSON data out of the response, okay?
What does the .json do? What does the .json do?
JSON is going to take the data from the response object and format it into a Python JSON object. Right, I know we haven't talked about objects and things, but it's important, right? So just think of it as taking the JSON data out of the response object, right? So that we can get at the users that we have, okay? And you'll see now, Killian, if you go to one more new line, it's the last line. And what we're going to do is we're going to print that out onto the console, okay? So we're going to do print, and then open brackets, yeah. Now we're going to do JSON dot dumps, D-U-M-P-S, dot dumps, and then open brackets, round brackets, and say users. So we're going to dump out the JSON users data onto our console. Okay, that's it. That's the program. Okay, so this should connect to our app and pull down the users data. Okay, just like we've seen with curl and on the web browser. Now, Killian, I don't know. Are you in a position? Well, I'm screen sharing, so I'll do it, right? So if we were to run this here, if I now run Killian's app, run user app, see, nothing's happening, and the reason nothing is happening is because it's blocking us from sending requests out of the coding rooms. So, I mean, Killian, do you want to copy that code down into a Python file on your laptop if you have Python installed and you could run it?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Let me stop sharing. So you'll need to share for this, obviously, Killian, right? So you want to put that text that you've written into a Python file, and we'll run it, okay? And just don't forget to share your screen with us when you have it set up. And guys, please, the code is up in the coding rooms now. I'll make the code available on GitHub, but feel free to copy it down yourselves, guys, in your own computer, everybody here, and run this like Killian is going to do, okay? I want to show you that, we can use Python and many other programming languages to, pull data from the web and do things with that data. Are you able to get that down, Killian? All right. Very good. So user app done.py. Yeah. So if you say that now, Killian, right? Yeah. So you want to run that. So if you press the play button up on the, yeah. Oh, what are we missing there? Oh, there's it looks like you don't have the request module. Can you do? Killian, if you go down to the terminal window at the bottom, where your terminal window, and click into it, and can you type in pip space install and space requests, just like on line 1. Maybe I already had this module, and that's why it didn't cause a problem for me. So pip is a package like a package module manager for Python. Well, there we go. Okay, now it's installed. Try running it now, Killian. There we go. It works. Look at that, everybody. It's the same data that we have up on the cloud app. Excellent. So look at that. We're using Python to pull JSON data down from our server app, and actually, you know, we can do things with it. At the moment, obviously, we're only printing it out to the console, but you know, there it is. Okay. Excellent. Well done, Killian. Thank you. Now, there's one more program. We have a few minutes left. The other program is slightly longer. Is there anybody else out there who would like to do some typing in the code rooms? Hands up. Connor. Hello, Connor. Right. Do you want to stop sharing? So, Killian, thank you. That's fantastic. And Connor, if you can start sharing, and I need you to go into the. Oh, actually, let me share. Let me share. Actually, Connor.
Okay.
Go into the coding rooms, Connor. Right. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new file in that folder 6. New file. User app write.py. If you could go into that file now, everybody, including you, Connor, as you're going to write in it, okay, or just watch the screen. So here we go. So now we're going to write an app that can send user data to the server, okay? I might, for the interest of time, I might give you some of the code, Connor. This one's slightly longer than the last one. Let me see, where do I have it here? I will give you the same code that I asked Killian to write, because the start of it is exactly the same. So let me put that into the chat window, and you can put it into the coding rooms window, Connor. So where's my chat window then? Chats. Right, there's the stuff. You just put all that at the top, Connor, right, from the chat window.
Yeah.
Very good. Excellent. Now, right, go to the next line. So now what we're going to do, we want to send user information to the server. So what we'll do is we'll use the Python inputs function to ask the user to type in like an ID and a name, and we'll send that to the server. So why don't you create a variable there, Connor, called name, and then it equal to, oh, you don't need var now, Connor, for this, right? So you just do name equals, right? Name equals input. We're going to use the input function.
Jesus, my keyboard.
That's all right. Input, and then do brackets and then have a string that says like, what is your name? Is informal as informal as one, yeah. Then go to the next line, Connor, and we'll do one for user ID as well. Make this one user underscore ID equals, and maybe just ask the user what is their ID. As I said, this is totally unrealistic because we don't ask people to provide their own IDs. Now, what is your ID? Yeah, very good. Now, it comes to the next line again, Connor. Now, what we need to do, this is where it gets slightly complicated. We're now going to send some JSON information to the server. So we need to build up the JSON based on what the user has typed in the inputs, okay? So what you're going to do, Connor, we'll construct a user object. So let's do another variable called user. User equals. And what we'll do is we're going to do a curly brace, Connor, an opening curly brace. No, that's a square. Yeah, exactly, one of those. Yeah. So inside there, Connor, what we want to do is a single quote ID. Just make, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, double quote's fine. Now close it with a double quote. And now put a colon. This is just like the data you see. You have seen. Killian.
Colon or semicolon?
A colon, that's right. A colon, that's a colon. Yeah. And then do. Now what we want to do is we want to convert. Remember, the integer, the ID is a string. Everything you guess in an input is a string. So we need to convert it to an integer. So what you can do, Connor, is just do int. Brackets, round brackets, user ID. So we're converting the string user ID into an integer. Okay, and then do a comma. Outside the brackets, of course, outside the round brackets, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then the next piece of data, then another string, Connor, username. And then what you're going to do, that needs to be one, I think that needs to be one word, Connor, yeah, username, and then do another colon outside the double quotation character. Exactly, and then set it to the name variable up above from line 6. There we go. So we've constructed a JSON object that contains the information. Just one thing, Connor, on line 7, make sure you put the word input before the brackets. You're missing that function call.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Okay, now come down to the next line, Connor, beneath line 9. Now we're going to send the HTTP request, but this time it's a put request. We saw that in the app. We need to send a HTTP put request to the server, okay, to send the data. So but we're going to get a response. So just like Killian did, Connor, you're going to do response equals request dot. This is the last thing, guys. By the way, guys, we'll be finished then. If you want to stay on another few minutes to let Connor finish this, request dot put. So remember, Killian did a get. We're going to do a put, and it needs to be requests, Connor, not request. Just like on line 1, it's requests. It's the request.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, fine. Request dot put, and then brackets, round brackets.
Yeah.
So just like Killian did, we need to pass the URL of the server.
Is that this one? Yeah.
Yeah, the URL variable from line 3.
Is that in quotes or just?
Oh no, you don't need it. That's a variable, so you don't need quotes, right? So just URL. Oh no, take out the whole string and just put in the word, the variable name URL. It'll work.
Oh.
Yeah, URL. Yeah. That's why we have variables. Exactly. Okay, very good. And then a comma. Now for this, Connor, what you need to do data equals JSON dot dumps, dumps, just like you did, dot dumps, brackets, user, round brackets again, round brackets, user. Yeah, very good. And then outside the brackets, another comma. And then the same as Killian, you're going to do headers equals headers, okay?
Okay.
On line 10, after the comma, headers equals headers. Yeah, headers equals headers. So this is a bit different to the get request. And then close the round brackets, Connor, and we're good, okay? Very nice. And then finally, two more lines to go. If we come to the next line and leave a line break, Connor, so we just to space it out a bit. You can come down to line 12 and we'll get the response. So let's get the message, because we send back a response message when we send the data. Mm-hmm. So if you do response underscore message equals response.text. Because unlike what Killian did, where we were receiving a JSON response with the list of users, remember when we send data to the server, we get back a string text message that says, what does it say? Where's the app? What does it say? It
says like received put
received. I gotta put request to / users. That's a string. It's text. It's not JSON, right? Yeah. So we're getting the text out of the response. Yeah. So finally, then last line, then Connor, go to the next line, and we'll just print that out, right? So do a print on response message. And you don't need the quotes. You just want the variable name response message.
Oh yeah.
So we're just printing out the variable. Excellent. We're done. We're done. Okay. So this should ask the user for some information, and then we'll post it to the server. Okay. So
we're gonna have to define response message, or is it fine?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
Response message is defined. That's what you're doing on line 12. You're setting response underscore message equals. It's a new variable.
Oh yeah.
So are you able to copy that? If you share your screen, Connor, are you able to copy that into a Python file and run it?
Yeah.
Okay, one thing, Connor, before you do, on line 3, it was my mistake, change user to users on line 3. At the end of the, because we fixed that.
Let's change Killian's too, or no?
Which one, Connor?
No, I was talking to myself.
Oh yeah, that's okay, yeah. That's fine.
Will I run the code on my computer like?
Exactly, because you can't run it here, it'll freeze, right? So I'll stop sharing. If you can copy it down into a Python file, Connor, in your text editor or wherever you want.
Yeah, I'm just opening up there.
Yeah, and share your screen with us, of course, so we can see when you're ready.
Yeah.
And you're going to run this, okay? Oh, Connor, we're just seeing a white screen. I think this is like last time you tried to share last week in your laptop. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay. Oh yeah, that's better. Okay. You're open. There we go. Okay. So I create a new file somewhere.
Yeah, I am now.
Yeah. That's a very red theme for your Visual Studio Code. Very good. Just paste all that in, yeah, that all looks okay to me. So if you save that now as some file with a name you'll remember.
It's called import request.
Oh, well, you haven't saved it though, so you need to go, Control S on your keyboard, right? So that it isn't saved yet. You can tell because there's a dot in the tab. So you need to save it as a file. We don't want to call it import request. There we go. So if you call it something like user app.py, right? I'm honored that you would save this into your code don't lose folder. And no spaces, no spaces. Do it again, Connor. No spaces in the name, right? Just making it awkward. So resave it again as something with a different name.
I can't remember how to rename on this.
If you right click on user app.py on the left hand side in your open editors, go to the annotation. You got it? Okay. Exactly, yeah, okay. So now if you can, in your terminal window there, Connor, if you can change directory into your code don't lose folder, because you're in your desktop at the moment, or your home directory.
Where is it?
I think you saved it into a folder on your desktop called code don't lose, right?
Oh yeah, I did.
Oh, actually, Connor, sorry. Don't even do that. Just press the play button up on the top right hand side. The easiest thing. See the little green play button? Yeah, press that. Oh, that'll do the job.
Yeah.
There we go.
There's a bracket in here. Or there's something missing.
No. Oh, there is an error. Connor, yeah. Do you see the online again on line 10? No, take those out. Take that out. Do you see where you have? Do you see where you have URL on that letter?
Yeah.
You've got a closing bracket after URL, so take that out.
There we go. It's also the same. Isn't defined or could not be resolved.
What can't be resolved?
Requests.
Oh yeah, so you need to do the same thing as Connor in your terminal window. If you run pip install requests, right? The screen share is a bit slow, but we can hear you typing it. No, I can see now. Yeah. Yeah. So requests is a Python module that's just not there out of the box.
Yeah.
You need to install it to get it to work.
It's just installing now.
It's fine. I'm gonna copy your code as well, just to have right. Just in case your screen share goes belly up, that I'll be able to run it here as well, Connor.
Yeah, it might, because it's installing.
It's installing, okay. Oh yeah, I see it installing now, yeah. Okay, very good. So this is going to ask you to type in a name and an ID, and then we'll send it off to the server just like we've done all along. There we go. Now press the play button. Oh yeah, there we go. So go on, type.
Wait, my name.
Yeah. And give it a high ID number, Connor, because I think yeah. And enter. Right.
Yeah, I press enter.
I'm not sure. So obviously your Python on Windows is running a bit slightly funky, but the question, I didn't see a message it's supposed to print out the message that says received a put request. I didn't see that.
I don't think we defined response.text.
Huh?
There's no response.text. I don't think that actually means anything. There's no there's nothing defining what it means. We're saying to print response dot message response underscore message, which equals response dot text, but response dot text isn't defined anywhere, so it doesn't actually know what to print.
You're defining response on line 10, right? And that's a response object, and that response object has a text property. That's not something you need to define. You get that for free.
Oh,
yeah, it is.
okay.
It's definitely there, right? Now, what I'll do, well, let me go to the UI and see. Are you there, Connor? So, what you were at number 79?
Yeah,
it's there. It worked.
all right.
Will I share again for a second, Connor, just to show everybody? Awesome, thank you. Very good. Excellent. Good work there, Connor. Excellent.
Thanks.
This one here. Oh. So you can see everybody there. Look, number 6, ID 79. There's the result of Connor's handiwork. If I run it, just to show you, we're saying I've Connor's code here. .user, Python 3 user app. Right. UI. Oh. Oh yeah, I need to fix Connor. The same problem Connor had. Yeah, there we go. Okay, my name is Bob. My ID is 112. There we go. Gotta put request / user. That's what this is, Connor. Right, so it's definitely there. And if I now go back to the list and refresh, there's Bob. 112.
Hey.
Well done, Connor. Well done, guys. Excellent work. So there you go. So you've now used some Python programming skills to write data to a server application and receive data from a server application. Wonderful. So I'll make all that code available on GitHub, okay? And the server app, and we can play, and people can play around with it in their own time. All right, so guys, I wanted to do a bit more networking stuff tonight, but I think that was good to do all that as well. So we'll dive in. We'll finish off on networking next week, and we'll finish out on the HTTP stuff that I wanted to show this evening, and then we might have a guest talk or two coming up in the near future. But once we're done with this, then, as I said last week, we'll be moving on to databases and putting a MySQL database on the app. All right, sorry now we ran so over time, but I wanted to give all of you the opportunity to write the code and do the activities rather than me. I think that's important, okay? So does anybody want to ask any questions before we finish up? Anything at all about anything we've seen tonight? No? Okay, cool. I'll stop the recording. I'll make the recording available for everybody who missed the session, and stop.